Hello, my friend. Come sit with me a while, because tonight's story is about a question that took 25 years to answer, and the answer, when it finally came, arrived nowhere near a stadium. Have you ever carried a small, quiet doubt about yourself for so long that you almost forgot it was there? And then, one day, without warning, life answered it anyway. A club once looked at an 8-year-old boy and decided he was not good enough. That boy would grow up to captain his country at a World Cup, score more international goals than any Englishman in history, and still spend 23 years chasing the first trophy of his career. Stay with me tonight, because this story is not really about football at all. It is about what a person becomes while they are still waiting. This is the story of Harry Kane. He was born Harry Edward Kane on the 28th of July, 1993, in a hospital in Leytonstone, in East London. His father, Patrick Kane, known to nearly everyone simply as Pat, had grown up in the city and spent years doing physical, unglamorous work, whatever paid the bills, to give his family a decent life. His mother, Kim Hogg, was a Londoner too, a naturally private woman who preferred to stay well outside any spotlight, a preference she would hold on to for the rest of her life, even once her son's face was known across the country. The family eventually settled in Chingford, a modest, tree-lined suburb on the northeastern edge of London, and it was there that young Harry grew up, kicking a ball around any patch of grass he could find. At 6 years old, he joined a small neighbourhood club called Ridgeway Rovers. He was not the quickest boy on the pitch, and he was not the biggest either. What set him apart, according to the coaches who remembered him from those early years, was that he simply refused to stop. Long after his teammates had gone home, Harry would still be out there, working through the same drills over and over. Word of the persistent boy from Chingford eventually reached one of the biggest academies in the country. Arsenal, whose famous youth setup at Hale End had produced a stream of talented players, signed him at 8 years old, and for a season Harry trained and played there, believing, the way only a child can believe, that he belonged. Then came a meeting that would follow him for the rest of his career. The academy's director at the time, Liam Brady, sat the family down, looked over the small boy in front of him, and delivered a verdict that has since become part of English football folklore. Too chubby, not athletic enough, not the kind of prospect worth developing further. Arsenal released him. The car ride home passed in near total silence. Harry sat in the back seat with his boots resting on his lap, staring out the window, while his father drove without saying a word for what must have felt like a very long time. Eventually, Pat Kane broke the silence with a single sentence. "Don't worry, son. We'll find you somewhere else." That was the entire conversation. The next morning, Harry laced his boots back up and returned to Ridgeway Rovers, back to the same modest, local pitch where it had all started. He never spoke publicly about that day as a wound, but somewhere in the back of his mind, a quiet question had lodged itself, one that would take root and stay there for decades. Was he actually good enough? He would never get a clean, final answer to that question. Instead, over the following 25 years, he simply learned to keep working while the question sat quietly beside him. Years later, a different club came calling, this time from the other side of North London. Tottenham Hotspur saw something in the teenager that Arsenal had once dismissed, and on his 16th birthday in 2009, Harry signed his first professional contract with the club that would come to define his career. He assumed, the way any hopeful young player would, that regular first-team football might follow soon after. It did not. Tottenham instead sent him out on loan, first to Leyton Orient and then to Millwall, hoping the experience of senior men's football would sharpen him. At Millwall, the beginning was rough. Harry went 8 matches without finding the net once, and the home crowd, unaware of who he would eventually become, grew audibly frustrated with him. One person at the club never lost faith, a coach named Joe Gallen, who watched Harry train with an intensity he had rarely encountered in 2 decades of coaching, later saying staff sometimes had to physically send him off the training ground because he simply would not stop shooting. In his 9th match, the goals finally arrived, and once they started, they kept coming. He finished the loan spell with 9 goals in 27 appearances and helped the club avoid relegation. He returned to Tottenham, hoping the loan spell had earned him a permanent place. It had not yet. He was sent out again, first to Norwich City, where an injury interrupted his season, and then to Leicester City, where he struggled to make much of an impression at all. 4 separate loan moves in total, 4 returns to Tottenham, hoping this time would be different, and 4 times watching someone else wear the shirt he wanted. Through all of it, Harry never once asked to leave permanently. He kept believing, quietly and without much public evidence to support it, that his moment was still somewhere ahead of him. That moment began taking shape in May 2014, when Tottenham appointed a new head coach, an Argentine named Mauricio Pochettino. Harry was 20 years old, still fighting on the margins of the first team, still unproven at the highest level. Pochettino, unlike some of the coaches before him, paid far less attention to reputations and transfer fees, and far more attention to what happened on the training pitch when nobody outside the club was watching. He noticed a young striker staying behind after sessions ended, firing shot after shot into an empty net long after his teammates had gone home, arriving earliest in the morning and leaving latest at night. Pochettino began giving him minutes, then more minutes, and by the following season he had made Harry his first-choice striker outright. The 21-year-old repaid that trust with 21 league goals in his first full campaign and 25 the season after that. Somewhere inside that stretch of goals sits a single afternoon that Tottenham supporters still sing about today. February 2015, Tottenham against Arsenal. The very club that had discarded an 8-year-old boy 14 years earlier for being, in their words, not athletic enough. Arsenal scored first that day. Harry answered from a corner to level the match. Then, in the 86th minute, with the clock running down, a cross from Nabil Bentaleb found its way into the box, and Harry rose above the Arsenal defenders to head the ball past the goalkeeper. Tottenham won 2-1. He did not celebrate wildly. He did not run toward the Arsenal bench to make a point. He simply jogged back toward the halfway line and let the crowd do the talking. And the crowd did talk, breaking into a chant that has followed him ever since, declaring that Harry Kane was one of their own. 14 years of quiet doubt answered in the form of a song. And still, remarkably, he did not slow down afterward. He kept scoring, as though some part of him still needed to keep proving a point to nobody in particular. By the summer of 2018, that relentless scoring had made him impossible to ignore on the international stage. Just before England departed for the World Cup in Russia, the national team handed him the captain's armband at only 24 years old, placing him in charge of one of the youngest England squads to ever attend a World Cup. There were no dramatic speeches attached to the appointment. Harry simply put the armband on and got to work. England surged through the group stage behind his scoring, including a stoppage-time winner against Tunisia and a hat-trick against Panama, one of the 3 goals arriving almost by accident off his heel from a teammate's shot, a goal Harry admitted afterward he barely even saw go in. Then came the round of 16 against Colombia, a tense, bruising match that ended level after 90 minutes and level again after extra time, forcing a penalty shootout. England, at that point in their history, had never once won a World Cup penalty shootout. Harry stepped up to take the first kick. He walked to the spot without hurrying, set the ball down, glanced at the goalkeeper for a single beat, and buried it. No wild celebration, just a calm walk back to the centre circle to prepare for whatever came next. England won that shootout, breaking a curse that had haunted the national team for decades, and advanced all the way to the semi-final, their first in 28 years. Across the country, pubs overflowed, and an old anthem about football, "Coming Home," echoed everywhere. Harry, notably, refused to join the sentiment publicly, telling reporters plainly that the team had not actually achieved anything yet. The semi-final against Croatia delivered the kind of heartbreak that lingers. In the 30th minute, Harry had the clearest chance of the match, a close-range opportunity he had converted 100 times before in his career. The goalkeeper saved his first attempt, the rebound fell straight back to him, and his follow-up struck the post and bounced away. He stood frozen for a moment, hands on his head. Croatia scored in extra time, and England's run ended 1 goal short, 1-2. Harry did not break down on the pitch. He walked slowly to the dressing room, showered, and went to face the press, offering only 3 words that would come to define much of the next decade of his career. "We will come again." He left that tournament with the Golden Boot as its top scorer, the first Englishman to claim it in over 30 years, though the achievement did little to soften how the tournament had actually ended for his team. The years that followed Russia were, by almost any measure, the most difficult of his career. Not because his form dropped, but because it never did, and still nothing came of it. He kept breaking scoring records for club and country, kept doing virtually everything a great striker is asked to do, and yet the one thing that continued to elude him was a trophy of any real significance. The first gut punch came in July 2021 at Wembley Stadium in the final of the European Championship. England had not reached a major final in 55 years, and now, on home turf, in front of their own supporters, they were finally there again, facing Italy. The match ended level after 90 minutes, level again after extra time, and went to penalties. Harry stepped up first for England and scored calmly. 3 of his younger teammates followed him to the spot and missed. Italy won the shootout and lifted the trophy on English soil in front of a devastated home crowd. Harry did not linger to watch the celebration. He walked straight down the tunnel. He had done everything asked of him individually, and it still had not been enough, because that is the particular cruelty of being a captain. You can only take your own kick. You cannot take anyone else's. The second gut punch, the one that would follow him longest, arrived in December 2022 at the World Cup in Qatar, in a tense quarter-final against France. Harry had already converted 1 penalty to level the match at 1 apiece. When France retook the lead, England were awarded a second penalty minutes later. Same spot, same distance, same taker. The entire country seemed to hold its breath. Harry placed the ball, glanced up briefly, and struck it clean over the crossbar, sailing into the empty seats behind the goal. He stood motionless for several seconds before pulling his shirt up over his face, holding it there for what felt like an eternity. England lost, their tournament over. Hours later, well past midnight, he walked into the press room anyway, his eyes visibly red, and told reporters he took full responsibility, that he would not hide from it, that this was simply football. 2 finals, 2 entirely different kinds of pain, and through both of them, the same 3 words remained his answer: "We will come again." By the summer of 2023, Harry was 30 years old and facing the biggest decision of his career. He could have stayed at Tottenham for the rest of his playing days, quietly accumulating club records and finishing as the greatest goalscorer in the club's history, beloved and comfortable. Or he could leave everything familiar behind in one final search for the trophy that had eluded him his entire life. This was never simply a football decision. Chingford was home. Tottenham was the only club he had ever truly loved. His wife, Katie, had known him since they were schoolchildren together, and their 3 young children had all been born in London. Leaving meant a new country, a new language, a new football culture entirely, at exactly the stage of a career when most players choose stability instead. For the first time in his life, rather than waiting for someone else to open a door for him, the way Arsenal once had and Tottenham had for years afterward, Harry chose to open one himself. On the 12th of August 2023, he flew to Munich to complete a transfer worth roughly €100 million, instantly becoming the most expensive signing in the history of German football. He stepped off the plane, pulled on a Bayern Munich cap, and held up his new number 9 shirt for the cameras. There was no wide, triumphant grin, only a small, quiet smile, the look of a man who had, for once in his career, made a choice entirely on his own terms. Football, however, had one more joke waiting for him. His very first match in a Bayern shirt was the German Super Cup, where he came on as a substitute, only to watch his new club lose 3-0. His first opportunity to win anything in Germany had evaporated on his very first day in the country. The Super Cup, though, was a minor prize compared to what really mattered: the Bundesliga title, which Bayern Munich had won 11 consecutive seasons running, the longest sustained period of dominance any club had produced in the modern history of European football. When Harry signed, the conclusion across football felt obvious. Kane would finally get his trophy because Bayern simply did not lose the league. That first season, Harry was extraordinary individually, scoring 36 league goals, a new record for any player's debut season in German football, and finishing as the top scorer across the entire continent. Bayern Munich, despite him, won nothing. For the first time in 12 years, the club finished a season empty-handed, as a smaller rival, Bayer Leverkusen, claimed the title without losing a single match all season. Sections of the press practically wrote the headline themselves. 11 years of Bayern winning, then Kane arrives, and it all stops. After one particularly pointed training session, a reporter asked him directly whether he believed he was somehow cursed. Harry did not smile and did not get defensive. He simply told the reporter that he did not believe in curses, only in the next training session, picked up his bag and walked to his car. The following morning, 6 a.m., the grass still wet with dew, he was back on the training pitch as if nothing had happened. 30 years old, 22 years into a football career, and still without a single major trophy to his name. He was not visibly bitter about it. He trained, he scored, he went home, and he did it again the next day, and the day after that. On the 3rd of May, 2025, Bayern Munich needed only a win on the road to finally secure the league title after that long, frustrating drought. Harry Kane was not on the pitch that day. He had accumulated too many yellow cards over the season and was serving a suspension, forced to watch from the stands in a t-shirt and jeans like any other supporter. Deep into stoppage time, with Bayern still leading and the title within touching distance, Harry rose from his seat, ready to run down toward the pitch the moment the final whistle blew. Instead, in the very last seconds of the match, the opposing team scored an equalizer, and the game ended in a draw. Harry sat back down slowly. No title, not that day. He allowed himself a small, tired smile in the stands, the smile of a man who, by that point in his life, understood perfectly well that things rarely arrived the easy way. The following afternoon, sitting at home, Harry watched a different match unfold on television, one involving Bayern's closest rivals for the title. If that other team failed to win, the championship would belong to Bayern, regardless of anything happening on any pitch that weekend. As the minutes ticked towards stoppage time, with the scoreboard still frozen, the title quietly became Bayern's. Harry Kane had finally won the first major trophy of his career at 31 years old, after very nearly 700 professional matches, and he won it sitting on his own sofa rather than standing on a pitch in front of 80,000 supporters. He picked up his phone and posted a single photograph online, a small image of the trophy. No lengthy statement, no tears for the cameras, just that. That weekend, Bayern gathered with their supporters in Munich to celebrate properly, and Harry joined his teammates in song, choosing, of all things, Bob Marley's 3 Little Birds, a gentle tune about not worrying because every little thing is going to be all right. A man who had waited 23 years for this exact moment, singing about patience and reassurance. When he finally lifted the league trophy, his comments afterward were characteristically understated. "It felt good," he said, It had been a long time coming, a lot of hard work had gone into it, and he was simply happy. He did not dwell on the circumstances of the suspension, did not complain about missing the actual moment on the pitch, did not indulge in any self-pity about how the trophy had finally arrived. He was simply happy that it had. Sometimes the reward does not come in the shape you once imagined it would. And still, somehow, it comes. Before we move any further, friend, it is worth pausing on something important. This next part of the story is being told while the 2026 World Cup is still actually being played, which means by the time you are hearing this, the tournament itself may already have reached its conclusion. But one particular chapter of it already belongs permanently to Harry Kane's story. England opened their World Cup campaign against Croatia, the very same team that had broken English hearts 8 years earlier in that Russian semi-final. The same shirts, the same colours, the same opponent from the night his shot struck the post and bounced away from destiny. 8 years later, in a stadium outside Dallas, the two sides met again, and Harry Kane was still there, still wearing the armband. In just the 12th minute, England won a penalty. Harry stepped up, took his familiar stuttering run and struck the ball, only to see the Croatian goalkeeper guess correctly and save it. For a moment, he simply stood there, looking at the ball, looking at the goalkeeper who had just denied him. Then the referee's whistle cut through the noise. The goalkeeper had come off his line early, and a Croatian defender had also encroached into the box before the kick was taken. The penalty would have to be retaken. Harry had been given a second chance most players in his position would have used to change their approach entirely, aiming for the opposite corner since the goalkeeper already knew where the first attempt had gone. Harry did not change a single thing. He walked back to the spot, placed the ball exactly where it had been, took the same run, and struck it toward the very same corner. The goalkeeper dived the correct way again, but this time the shot was simply too fast for him to reach. 1 goal to nothing. Later in the same half, a corner from Declan Rice found Harry rising above the Croatian defence, and his header found the net, his 10th World Cup goal for England, matching a national record set by Gary Lineker 36 years earlier. England went on to win the match 4-2. Back in Russia in 2018, Harry Kane had walked off that pitch against Croatia in near total silence, a rebound bouncing away from him at the worst possible moment. 8 years later, in Texas, he walked off having scored twice and equaled a record that had stood since before he was even born. Some circles in life, it seems, take a very long time to finally close. We have walked a long way together tonight, my friend, from a cramped car ride home in silence to a stadium in Texas nearly 3 decades later. Harry Kane is not simply the story of a late bloomer, because a late bloomer still knows, somewhere inside, that their moment is eventually coming. Harry Kane's story is something slightly different. It is what happens when life offers you almost no guarantees at all. No exceptional pace, no ideal physique, no smooth, uninterrupted path upward, no trophy of any real significance before the age of 31. What he did have, the one thing nobody could ever take away from him, was the patience to remain exactly who he already was, match after match, disappointment after disappointment, for over 2 decades. Life will not always reward effort on any convenient schedule. But perhaps the real question was never really about timing at all. Perhaps the real question is simply this: when the reward finally does arrive, will you still recognize yourself as the person who was waiting for it? Harry Kane, by every account from the people who have known him longest, remains that same person, from the boy who quietly put his boots back on after Arsenal sent him away at 8 years old, to the grown man who refused to change his mind on the penalty spot against Croatia at 32. Today he is a captain, a husband, a father, and finally, a champion. And perhaps that particular sequence, in that particular order, is exactly why this World Cup feels different for him. Not because the football itself has become any easier, but because Harry Kane has arrived at it more settled in himself than he has ever been before. Perhaps England were never really waiting for a hero to show up. Perhaps they have simply been walking alongside one the entire time without fully noticing. One more thing before we part ways tonight, friend. Whatever it is you are still carrying, whatever quiet hope you have not yet seen answered, you are not behind schedule. You are simply somewhere along your own particular path. Keep walking. Keep doing the work nobody else is watching you do. The rest tends to arrive in its own time, whether or not anyone is there to applaud it. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. Which part of Harry Kane's story stayed with you the longest? And here's a question worth sitting with. Do you believe England can finally win it all in 2026 with this version of Harry Kane wearing the armband? I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Take care of yourself, and until next time, rest well.